This podcast is supported by Talkspace.
When my husband came home from his military deployment, readjusting was hard for all of us. Thankfully, I found Talkspace.
Talkspace provides professional support from licensed therapists and psychiatric providers online. Military members, veterans, and their dependents ages 13 and older can get fast access to providers, all from the privacy of their computers or smartphones.
I just answered a few questions online, and Talkspace matched me with a therapist. We meet when it's convenient for me, and I can message her anytime. It was so easy to set up, and they accept TRICARE. Therapy was going so well, my husband and I started seeing a couples therapist through Talkspace too.
Talkspace works with most major insurers, including TRICARE. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com/military. Go to Talkspace.com/military to get started today. That's Talkspace.com/military.
Hello, book lovers. Welcome to Must Love Books. Welcome back to Must Love Books podcast. Today I am here with author GM Ferry. GM Ferry is a best-selling erotica author who dabbles in fantasy, sci-fi, and all things whimsical. She is best known for Get in My Swamp, an ogre love story, and Bad Behavior. We'll also talk a little bit about her recent release, The Crimson Wolf, and an upcoming erotica for 2025, Hounded by the Produce. Hello, how are you?
Hi, Krystle. Thank you so much for having me. I'm great.
I am so excited to have you on. I love these. I almost want to call them like comedy eroticas.
Yes, I always say like humorous erotica, but comedy erotica is a good phrase for it too. I always like to have a little bit of humor, but also make it steamy.
Yeah, for sure. I've also seen like satirical erotica and parody erotica, being used as descriptors. And, I kind of think that they all kind of are interconnected in a way. And so whatever you want to call this specific genre, it's just a lot of fun and just really great, fun little reads. And so I'm really excited to talk to you about your novels today.
Yay, thanks. Me too.
So you're most known for Get in My Swamp, an ogre love story. So we're just going to start off with that one. Can you, for any of our listeners, I like to pretend that no one has ever heard of you, but everyone knows you all at the same time. So, so how about you just give us like a little bit of a brief overview of Get in My Swamp, and then we can talk about it.
Yeah, so Get in My Swamp is my first novel. I was inspired by my very big love for Shrek growing up. So it's a story about an ogre named Beck who lives in a magical community in the swamps of Florida. I live in Florida, so that's kind of where that came from. And there is a woman named Leona, and she is on a silent retreat for her bachelorette trip at the swamp, and she goes for a walk and stumbles into Beck's trap. So he kidnaps her and ultimately falls in love with her because she's so beautiful. And there's a lot of enemies to lovers. She tries to run away, but then finds he's a big cinnamon roll. And she's also engaged to a man named Lawrence Fark, who is the heir of the dual lock home security system. And he's not a great guy. And there is some drama with that. But basically that is the premise of Get in My Swamp. And then there's a second book called Stay in My Swamp, which is the ogre happily ever after. So that kind of is inspired by the second movie of Shrek, where Beck, our ogre, turns into a human in the second book. But these are all very, very loose inspirations for Shrek.
Yes, definitely don't dive in expecting to see the same kind of themes and stories, and instead have a lot of spicy smut.
Yes, some people, I've seen some reviews where people say like, this wasn't Shrek enough, or this was too, I don't think people say it was too Shrek, but I think with marketing, I like to use like Shrek a lot in marketing to kind of like get people talking about it. But in reality, Shrek is very loosely inspired by this book, because like, first of all, I don't want to get sued. And second of all, I wanted to make it like a little bit darker. So there are things in the book that are dark and are like kind of just messed up. And I know a lot of people say, why? Like Donnie is a character in the book and he is a centaur. And a lot of people do not like what I did with Donnie in the book. And honestly, I have no idea why I did that. But I just knew that it would get people talking. And so I did it. And people do talk about, so some people love, there's a specific scene with Donnie in the main characters where he's like full on villain. And some people love that scene or some people hate it. But it got people talking. So that was accomplished.
You know, and getting people talking is definitely one big component of this genre of erotica. It is definitely, you know, obviously we're having fun and we're reading it, but we're also really like talking and having these deep discussions about like the dark romance elements and, you know, what really goes on in the story, which I think is great because who thought that, you know, Shrek smut would spur these discussions?
I know, and I hear people, because obviously Shrek, the reason that a lot of people love Shrek is because of the message that he is not this conventionally attractive character and that he falls in love at the end, and that's kind of what people love about Shrek. And I think even the monster romance genre in general, or the sentient romance genre, or like just the weird romance genre, that's what people love about it, I think, is that it's like not conventionally attractive or not conventionally thought of as a romantic figure characters, and they end up having their happily ever after. They're put in situations where like everybody can find love at the end. And I think that's what makes people like this genre. I know that's definitely what makes me like it, because you can just be very creative with it, and it has a lot of heart in it too, even besides all the silliness and craziness.
And, you know, I completely agree. That is definitely something that people really love about monster romance. Like, yes, it kind of gives you a little giggle. And yes, there is some silliness and weirdness, but there's also, you know, this deeper side to monster romance that shows that, you know, everyone is worthy of love, capable of love. And there's always a theme of not necessarily being conventionally attractive, as you said, and being able to still find love while fitting outside of the mold, so to speak.
Yeah, that's definitely, I think, what drew me to it. I think it's what draws a lot of people to the genre. Also, I listen to a lot of podcasts when people talk about my books. That's one of my favorite things to do, is like listen to different podcasts about my book. And I was listening to one, I forget which one it was, but they were talking about how monster romance, you can really be crazy with your storyline and your plot and what happens, because your readers are already going in reading monster romance, which is not like normal, conventionally normal romance. So they are more willing to accept the wildness. And so I think that's another reason that I love writing in this genre, because I can just, like, anything that comes to my head, I can put it on paper, and I know someone will like it and agree with me, even if it is outlandish. So that is like a very freeing and comforting feeling to like be, okay, I'm with my weirdos like me. So I think that's a good part of the genre.
Absolutely. And as a monster romance writer, you get to have so much more creative control and allow yourself to really just explore a lot of unconventional, out of the box plots and characters and themes.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I always love telling people the books that I'm reading, like a door romance or a pillow romance or even like the Minotaur romance, and people are just like, what? And I'm like, no, you have to like read one and then you'll get it. You'll get it once you read one.
Because really anything goes.
Mm-hmm.
Anything goes.
Yeah, it does. I love it.
After the Get in My Swamp, you have Bad Behavior. Now, does this one come from the Bee movie?
So B movie was definitely the inspiration for Bad Behavior. I think everything I've written so far, except My AI, which is not one of my more popular titles, is an inspiration of something. So yes, the Bad Behavior is definitely an inspiration of B movie. I remember watching it as a kid and just being flabbergasted that it was a bee and human romance, the B plot. Like that was a big theme even though that wasn't the main part of the movie, it was a big theme of the movie. And I just thought that was so funny. And I think that's a reason that the B movie got so popular, is because people think that is so ridiculous. And so I think my book is much less ridiculous, because at least in my book, he's an alien shapeshifter. So that's what made way more socially acceptable, in my opinion, because he is a humanoid and not just an insect. But I wanted to give people that are fans of this movie I wanted to give them closure and what it would look like if the bee and the human actually fucked.
And that's the closure that was needed.
Yeah, I think everybody needed that.
Because honestly, that is the only thing that people really remember about that movie is the love story aspect. Even though that was such a minor plot point compared to the overall theme, like that's all people remember.
Yeah, and I remember watching it because I knew because I always am trying, like, I do think that my writing is good, biasly. I think it's good. But I think the reason that it does so well is because of the ridiculous aspect of it. And so I was thinking, okay, what is the next ridiculous thing I'm going to do? And B movie was on the top of my head. And so I had to rewatch it to remember what even happened in the movie. And it's like a very long plot about environmentalism, and I didn't remember any of that. I did not remember what happened besides the romance. And I don't think really anyone does, because I did put a little like Easter eggs from the movie in the book that like nobody realized, because the only part that people remember is you like jazz and the Ken, I guess in the movie is his name, the boyfriend stuff. So yeah, if you haven't seen the B movie recently, it's a good one to rewatch.
Absolutely, for sure. So let's talk about your recent release, The Crimson Wolf. And this one is not as much of a parody, right?
Yeah, so I think this is my most serious book that I've ever written under this pen name. And so this one is inspired by Red Riding Hood. And when I first came up with the idea, I was writing it on Kindle Vella. So I would write chapter by chapter. And this one actually took me a long time to write, just because I kept getting distracted with like the Bad Behavior and other books that came up. But originally, me and my best friend were talking and like coming up with ideas. And she was like, what if you wrote a book about Little Red Riding Hood and she gets with the lumberjack and the wolf? And I was like, oh, that'd be so great. So originally I thought it was going to make it a wide choose. And I was planning on making it a little bit more like funny, and not that all why choose books have to be funny, not at all. But I was planning on making it a little bit more satirical. But then as I started writing it, I was like, I think I want to make this more kind of like a romantasy vibe, even though it's modern world with fantasy elements. But it's the longest book I've ever written. It does have humor in it, like. Towards the end of me writing the book, I really wanted to get in the quote, "I got that dog in me." I don't know why, but that was something I really wanted. So I found a way to get that quote into the book in a way that is not too outlandish. So there is some comedy in there as always, and like just some humor and witty banter. But it is it's not as there is more plot than there is smut, I would say, for this book.
So how was it, or how did you approach writing differently between the more serious of The Crimson Wolf versus the parody eroticas?
I definitely took longer to write this one. It took me like a year, which usually with my other books, it takes me like 2 months to write the whole book, just because I give myself a timeline and they're shorter and I just crank them out. But I think I did not enjoy writing The Crimson Wolf as much as I enjoyed writing like Bad Behavior, just because it's sillier and it's less pressure, and the reviews you get are you're gonna be like, whatever, like it's just a silly book. If you didn't like it, it's not for everybody. But for the Crimson Wolf, it just felt like a little bit more pressure. So it wasn't the most fun writing project. But now that I have it done, there's a second book in the series called House of Wolves, which is a retelling of The Three Little Pigs. So I'm planning for this to be a series of all wolfish fairy tale retellings. I do feel more confident about writing that book since I did this book and people are liking it and I don't feel as scared. So the process is very different. I know when I started this book, I did not plan out the plot at all, like very vaguely planned out the plot, and I was just writing it on Kindle Vella chapter by chapter. And then as I started giving myself deadlines, I was like, okay, I really need to figure out what happens at the end of this and be more exact with how the story is going to go. So I ended up plotting it out. And that was kind of a bad idea because then when I had to edit it, there was a lot of things that changed and it felt kind of messy. But I had a really great editor and we tightened it up and made it great. But I usually, with like Get in My Swamp and Bad Behavior in those books, I'm very specific with plotting so that I know exactly when I can finish it. And that's why it takes only 2 months. So this book was a little bit more artistically thrown together, I would say, than my other books that were a little bit more regimented, even though that sounds like it would be the opposite since the other books are sillier. But yeah, overall, very different experience, but I'm glad that I have it and I'm really happy with how the book turned out.
And I have to say, the cover art for The Crimson Wolf is so beautiful. It is honestly one of the best cover arts I have seen this past year, to be honest.
Wow, thank you so much. So thank you so much. That means so much to me because I actually designed the cover myself. I designed all of my covers myself except the Get in My Swamp completed series. Burning Star Art made that art for it, which is obvious because it's like, a illustrated cover. But yeah, I was very proud of it. I always, that's one of my favorite parts of writing and publishing is designing the covers because it's very like creative, even though sometimes it feels like I sidetrack of what I actually need to do. Like I just redesigned the cover for House of Wolves, the second book, but I'm very happy with it. I don't think I'll mess with it anymore. But that makes me so happy when people say that because I even looked at hiring cover artists because now I've just gotten to the point where I'm so busy. I'm like, I really probably shouldn't be doing this. I should be outsourcing this, and there's some beautiful covers, but when you look at the prices of some of them, it's like, oh my goodness, I don't know. If I can do this myself, I might as well. So I'm very thankful that people love the cover because that's one of my proudest achievements of this book.
Yeah, your cover art for honestly all of your books, the covers really stand out and they correlate so well to the story and the pages. You do an excellent job.
Thank you so much. And I actually do it in Canva. Like,
you know what? I use Canva for everything.
Yeah, I love it. And I think I've always talked to people about how awesome Canva is and how much you can do. And I think it's a good testament that you don't need to spend all the money to publish and you can find cheaper ways and more accessible ways to get your book out there if that's something you're wanting to do.
Yeah, programs like Canva definitely make this a lot more accessible, which I just think it's great to be able to have more creative control over your work and be able to, take what you envision and really bring it to reality.
Yeah, like even with social media posts, I don't know what people did before Canva. Like, how would you make, I mean, I guess Adobe Illustrator, I don't even know, but that would have been very difficult for social media because you need to post like very frequently and sometimes you can just go on Canva and get ideas of what to post.
Yeah, I definitely use Canva for ideas all the time. Because you know what? I did not post very much before Canva. I really didn't because I lacked the artistic ability to create really much of anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I did either. Or it was just like, pictures with my friends or things like that. It wasn't like bookish content, I think, before Canva.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. See, Canva should sponsor the podcast.
They should. That would be great.
Hint, hint.
Yeah, definitely. We'll send it to them if we can.
So I have something to tell you, and I don't know if maybe you have already seen this on Goodreads, but maybe not. While I was preparing for our podcast recording, I was going through your Goodreads and like just kind of looking at the reviews and everything. And I noticed that The Crimson Wolf, which, as you said, it just released on Halloween. It's only been out for a few weeks. It is your highest rated novel.
Yeah, I know, and I'm very happy about that. I think I mean, by the time you're listening to this, I probably will have more like negative reviews. I know as an author you're not supposed to look at reviews, but I think that I'm able to look at reviews because I don't take anything personally, especially writing under a pen name. It doesn't hurt my feelings. And also I do think it helps me in the future, like seeing what people liked or didn't like. I think it helps me with my writing, and I can be objective and be like, okay, I don't agree with that, so I'm not going to take that into consideration. But if it is something that I'm like, oh, I didn't think about that, then it does help me in the future. So I do look at my Goodreads. I know you're not supposed to, but I do. And I think at this moment, I only have like one negative review or like a few not positive reviews. So that is really cool to have. I know that will change. Like there's no book that can be for everybody. So that's a crazy feeling to have. And sometimes I wonder, like, is it because this is my first like serious books and everybody's just so shocked that I can write a book that's like more serious, and that could be it. But I think this book is something that a lot of people will enjoy. I know a lot of people have compared it to Bride by Ali Hazelwood, and that is definitely a book that I read to get inspiration for this book. So I love when people compare it to Bride because I love that book. So I do think this is a book it's a very good starter to monster romance because he is like more humanoid and he shifts. So I think this book is more easily digestible to wider groups of readers.
Absolutely. I definitely agree. And now on the other end of the spectrum, let's dive into your upcoming parody erotica, Pounded by the Produce.
Yep. So that one I'm super excited for. I'm currently writing it right now. I'm like halfway through. And it's been the most fun to write, but I actually think it may be too good for how ridiculous it is. Like I'm like writing these quotes in there that are very like Song of Achilles, Call Me by Your Name inspired. And I'm like, oh, I forget that they're literally gonna be cucumbers and tomatoes and make jokes about silly songs with Larry and where is my hairbrush, and so I think it's a good mix of humor and being like, oh wow, this is actually a good story. I hope so. Maybe I'm Delulu, but I think it is actually good. But so it is loosely inspired. Don't come for me, VeggieTales, but VeggieTales, of course, because it's a tomato and a cucumber. It's about two priests named Laurent and Robert, and they live in this countryside parish. And they have a new cook that works for them, who is Emily, who is a young, beautiful woman. And she comes and works at the parish and kind of ignites something in both of them. And they both have been best friends for a long time, Laurent and Robert. And they kind of had these hidden feelings for each other. And Emily kind of inspires more of this. But ultimately, under a harvest moon, they take the form of a cucumber and a tomato. And there are some steamy scenes with cucumbers and tomatoes, but then also humans as well. So it is ridiculous, but I am excited for people to read it.
Honestly, this is the one that as soon as I saw your initial post about it, that is what convinced me that I had to have you on this podcast.
Oh, I'm so glad. I hope this is like Get in My Swamp has really been what I've been known for all this time, which I love. But it's just crazy that's my first book. Sometimes that makes me kind of self-conscious because I don't think it's my best book I've written at all. I didn't know that it would turn into what it is now because this is my full-time job now because of Get in My Swamp, and I had no idea that would be the case. I think if I did know that, I might have done things a little bit more professionally in the beginning. But I do love Get in My Swamp. I think it's a good book. But I want to have another book that kind of shines as bright as Get in My Swamp, and I'm hoping that's this one. Bad Behavior was very close, but I really think it could be this one. I think it's going to be funny.
And that's really what we're here for. We like a little smut. We like to laugh and just not take things too seriously. I like to use these books as like almost like a palate cleanser.
Yes, definitely. Except now I'm at the point where that's all I read. And so people are like, oh, have you read like ACOTAR? And I'm like, oh, yeah, it was really hard for me to get through. It's just too like academic for me, really, because all I read is like these little short smut books. So I really am actually out of control, but I do love it.
So let's talk a little bit about how you approach your writing process and a little bit of your publishing journey.
Yeah, so I guess for my writing process, it started where every book was kind of different, whether I would plot a book out or whether I would be a pantser, which means like I would fly by the seat of my pants and just write vibes and write ideas as they came to me. But I think now that I have a lot more deadlines and I'm writing more frequently, I am strictly a plotter. So I will come up with an idea and then I spend about a week, or sometimes less, like Pounded by Produce. I planned that whole book in literally a day, like a few hours. I planned out every single chapter and what it would be about. But yeah, I don't use any really fancy equipment for my writing process. Like I've tried a lot of different things. I've tried Scrivener, I think it's called.
Scrivener, yeah.
Scrivener, yes. I've tried Scrivener. It's just the learning curve that I'm too impatient to learn. I've tried sticky notes and trying to like plot out with sticky notes. That turns into a mess quickly for me. So now I just do like a Google Docs. I'm a Google Docs girl, which I know that's like chaotic, but I love Google Docs. And I'll just like plot it out like old school way with 3 acts, and then each act has a sub act, and then I write chapters from there. So basically I start with big picture and then I move to smaller segments. So it's eventually chapter by chapter. So that's kind of how my writing process is. And I've always been like this, even for my other books that I've written under my real name, I always come up with the title first. I don't know why, but that is kind of what inspires a book. And I actually, except this one book that I'm writing, I have a book that's coming out in 2025. November 2025. So a long time from now, but it's a shared world book, and it's going to be inspired by Monsters, Inc., and it's going to be called Scream for Me. But that took me a long time to come up with that title. I came up with the plot first. So most of the time I come up with the title first, but sometimes I don't. And yeah, that's kind of my writing process. Now it's a lot less chaotic. And for my publishing process, so I started publishing and writing in 2018, and I write under my real name. I write books that are very different. So I did a little self-publishing, and now I'm in traditional publishing for my real name, and it's a very, very long waiting process. Even though I have an agent and I'm like on submission and I've had publishing deals, it still takes forever to get books out. And I guess as a reader, even some authors, you kind of just see the people where they get this big book deal and then everything from there is like book deal, book deal, book deal. But that's not the case for a lot of authors. So for me, it's just kind of waiting around and like waiting for that big break. And I knew that I wanted to do this full time, and that was my dream. And I was seeing all these other authors on social media that are writing romance, and they're self-publishing, and they're making 6 figures, and they like made a viral video, and now they just sit back and like watch the proceeds roll in, which now I know that's not really how it works, but that seemed really appealing to me. And so I was working in marketing. I knew a lot about marketing. I knew how to make, viral videos. And I was like, let's just have this crazy idea of a Shrek-inspired book and see what happens. So I wrote the book. I started in November 2022, and then I published it in February 2023. And by April is when it went viral. And so then everything went really fast from there. And then it was kind of just me trying to keep up with it and like slowly turn more and more serious about it, because I feel like when I first started, it was just me making this like rage bait and like just being silly. And then as it got bigger, I was like, oh, I actually enjoy doing this. People are actually enjoying books. I mean, some people hate it, but some people are enjoying it, and I really can make this a career. And so I started connecting with the Bookstagram community and like making relationships with my readers and making a website and doing all the things. And it kind of felt a little backwards for I think how most people do it. But now here I am, and every day I'm like learning ways to make my career more professional. But I think I've come a long way in a short amount of time. But yeah, so now I self-publish. I am really happy with self-publishing. It's so freeing. It's so rewarding because you get like immediate feedback and you get to get your book in front of readers so quickly. And it's just a lot more fun than my real life publishing and writing, which I still like am trying my hardest to make it big there. But here it's just like a lot more fun. And I'm thankful for all the people that are a part of this community.
So one thing I love to do with this podcast is when I can get authors who have experience with both trad publishing and self-publishing or indie publishing. And so I love being able to hear the different experiences and how you approach them differently and how things, what works and what doesn't work. So I really love being able to have that comparison for, we have a lot of potential authors who are listening, getting inspiration and, learning about the industry. So I really love you being able to share those experiences with our listeners.
Yeah, and I don't often get to share those experiences just because I'm very private about my real life. So I love talking about it because I feel like it makes me seem more like human, and this is something that everybody goes through as an author, and it's not all a very linear line when it comes to publishing. It's a lot more nuanced.
Oh yeah,
and a lot of loops and turns. So I love hearing other people's experiences too.
So as an author who has experience with both trad and self-publishing, what is a piece of advice you would share with potential authors?
I would say when thinking about what you want to do, whether it's traditional publishing or self-publishing or hybrid, I would really look at your genre because I feel like a lot of people see success from different authors or how they're getting there, and they're not taking in consideration of what genre they're writing in. I think romance specifically does really well both self-published and traditionally publishing. And I think that's just because people read romance so much more than any other genre that exists. So people are very, very hungry for more books, and they are on social media, and they're basically our demographic of people on social media. So if you're making posts for free, you can reach your ideal reader, and you don't need a big publishing house behind you necessarily. So I think your genre is very important. If you don't write romance or like romance subplot or anything like that, you can still have success with self-publishing, but I think traditional publishing is something to consider because you can reach people easier than maybe on social media. And I know everybody has different experiences, but I guess just from my experience, that is what I learned. And self-publishing, so people always ask me what's easier, what's harder, traditional publishing or self-publishing, and they both come with their challenges. I would say traditional publishing, it's a lot more out of your control. So some people say, oh, it's harder because it's harder to get an agent or it's hard to get a deal. It's not technically harder. Like, it's just sitting there and waiting and getting rejections a lot, but you don't have to do more work. So when you're self-publishing, all the work is on you, literally everything, unless you hire people out, which you eventually find that you do once you get more sales and you get busier. But you're still finding those people to do work for you. So self-publishing is all you, but you can publish whenever you want. And sometimes self-publishing is a good way to get into traditional publishing. There's a lot, especially in romance, there's so many authors that started out self-publishing and now they have major book deals and are so successful with traditional publishing.
Oh, yeah, that is a huge trend and something that we've talked about on this podcast before is how many authors start off either self-publishing or even in the sphere of fan fiction and are able to pull off a traditional book deal based on that, which I think is just absolutely incredible and something that we definitely would not have seen as much as even just 5 years ago in publishing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it makes it more accessible to different readers of different backgrounds because now it is not always, I mean, of course, with writing, there is a little bit of privilege that always comes with being successful in publishing, and even if it's self-publishing, because you have to have the time to do it, and time is a privilege. So I feel like there is a little bit of privilege always with writing and publishing, but I like one of my favorite movies and books ever is Little Women, and I always like look at her journey of trying to get published. And it back then, like if you didn't get one of these publishers to publish your book, there was no chance that your book would ever get out there. And now that's like anybody could publish a book if they want to. And if you and I always think like there are a lot of good books that don't get the hype that they deserve. But I think it's much more possible now. If you genuinely write a good book that people are going to love, it's much more possible that people will hear about it because of the internet and because things are so easy to share with other people without having a big corporation behind you. So I'm so glad that I was born in this time.
Jo March would have loved Kindle Unlimited.
Oh, she would have. She would have.
So I would love to talk about what it is like writing under a pen name.
Yeah, so I always say, because I'm a full-time writer, so I have people in my real life that ask me what I do, and I say, oh, I'm a writer, and they ask me what I write, and I never tell people, even if I'll never see them again, I never tell people because I'm very scared about crossing lines with my writing world. So I always say it's like I asked a magic genie if he would grant me the wish of being a full-time writer, but I wasn't specific of how I wanted that to look and like this is where I am, even though I love it. But it is definitely not what I thought my writing full-time author life would look like 5 years ago. But it really is. So I always say I'm in my Hannah Montana era. Like it's the best of both worlds. I get to have my privacy, and I get to, just be kind of multifaceted and write different things. And I love writing as a pen name because, like I said earlier, with reading reviews or I watch YouTube videos of people talk about the book, or I was even on the show After Midnight. They were talking about my book, Get in My Swamp, or The Cut talked about my book, Bad Behavior. And even though they make jokes about it, it doesn't hurt my feelings because they don't know who I am. I'm just GM Fairy. So it's just funny and fun all the time. It's not as heavy as I think. With my real name, when I get negative reviews, it's they know who I am and they can go find me on the internet, know everything about me and judge me. But with a pen name, that's not possible. So I think that's why I specifically love it so much. And yeah, it's definitely, I'm getting a lot more loose-lipped. Even here on this podcast, probably a year ago, I would never have done a podcast because I'd be afraid someone could tell my voice and know who I am. But I'm getting more comfortable now because I'm who cares? If someone finds out, nothing's going to really happen. But so I'm getting more confident with it. But I do love it so much.
Yeah, I feel like it gives you, you have that level of secrecy and protection. But I think it also allows you to be more free and creative with your writing.
Yeah, definitely. If I knew that people in my real life were reading these books, I probably wouldn't have got the courage to write them in the first place. So I am very thankful that I chose this path.
I can definitely see that for sure. Because I would be the exact same way, definitely would use a pen name, or maybe I have one and no one knows.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Everybody should have one, I think.
You know what? We all should just have a secret pen name.
Yeah, see, and I even have a costume. I have a secret identity because I'm going to 4 different conferences next year.
Wow.
Which is the big thing for me. I didn't even think I was ever going to do that, but I am. So I'm going to Strange Love Indie in Indianapolis. I will be at Monster Lovers Erotica or Monster Erotica. I feel like I'm saying the name wrong, in Baltimore. I'm not going as attendant author, but I will be there. And then in Florida, I'm going to Smut Lovers and Flirty in Tampa. And so I will have like a costume on when I meet people, which is kind of silly, but I think it's fun.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it protects your identity, but it also honestly just sounds like a lot of fun and a free excuse to dress up and do something different.
Yeah, I think so too. I've been like showing some people that know about this, like my costume and stuff, and they're like, I can tell who you are, but I'm like, yeah, but you wouldn't like know if you didn't know me. So I think it's okay.
And honestly, it just sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely.
So how many people would you say actually do know?
I just told, so my mom and sister are at my house, and I literally just told them today. So my mom and
Just
sister,
today?
yeah, like my
Wow.
mom obviously knew that, and like my whole family knows that I write under a pen name, but I did not want to tell them what it was. I have a lot of sisters. So some of them knew, but now all of my sisters know today. And then I have like I think all of my close friends know, but none of my close friends have read my books. Like they all know, but none of them I like refuse to let them read them. Maybe they have read them and just never said anything to me, but I don't in real life I don't have a lot of friends that are readers, so it's kind of a good thing because even if they know, they wouldn't read it. But and then I think there's like a few people that we've slipped up to and they found out. So I would say just a handful of people, honestly.
I love that. It's almost like having a complete alter ego.
Yes, definitely. I love it. And my husband likes it too. He thinks it's fun.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's, yes.
Before we wrap up here, what are you currently reading?
So, I am reading the new Ruby Dixon book. What is it called? It's the pink one with the rainbow cover.
Oh, yeah, Bull Moon Rising, right?
Yes, Full Moon Rising. That is what I'm reading right now. I just finished A Soul to Keep by Opal Rain, I think her
Yeah.
name is. I just finished that and I've been taking forever to read books. And then after that I'm reading Biblio Barbie's new book that came out today. And I forget what it's called, like Wolves. It's about a sentient mascot romance.
All right, into it.
X, yeah. I kind of want to look it up and see what it's called so I can give her a little shout out because she's like the best um, fan ever. Howls and Home Run is the book. That's what I'm reading next.
All righty. Well, maybe we'll have some of our listeners join you in reading that.
Yeah. Should be good.
Ruby Dixon's new one, Bull Moon Rising, is also on my list. And I just have to say, so I'm a big fan of like good cover art,
Yeah.
and that cover is just beautiful and so eye-catching. I was going to pick it up and buy it without even seeing who it was by or what it was, knowing nothing about it. I was like, oh, I need to have that book.
I know, and it has the digital sprayed edges too. I don't know if all of them do, but I think all the ones I've seen have the really pretty digital sprayed edges. So it was a must for me.
Yes, I do not have any of those sprayed edges, those smudges books yet, and I really have to get some because they're just so beautiful.
Yeah, I just got the Crimson Wolf, I have these exclusive editions for my Patreon members and they're sprayed edges of roses and they're so so pretty and I'm obsessed with them and I
Oh,
like
I
kept
love that.
I
So,
know that was like one of a big author moment for me. I feel like
oh yeah, for sure.
yeah, love it.
So, to lead us out of our episode, why don't you tell us a little bit about your Patreon?
Yeah, so I have one tier in my Patreon. It's only $5 a month, and it is what's included is you can get these special edition Crimson Wolf books. It also I send like not safe for work and different art to all my Patreon members. and you get to see the not safe for work art because, of course, you can't post that on other platforms. And I also write a serial story called Swamp Tales. So it is Beck and Leona from Get in My Swamp, but it's just steamy scenes with them and a member of my Patreon team. So every month I call for people if they want to be in a swamp tale, and I pick one person and they get to be thrown into like a steamy, sexy time with Beck and Leona. So that is included. And then also it has special announcements are now announced there, 20% off of all my shop items, and also first look at steamy scenes.
All right. I love that.
Yeah.
And where can they find your Patreon at?
My website is gmfairyauthor.com, and there is a link on the website for Patreon.
All right. Well, I want to thank you again so much for joining us today on Must Love Books. This has been such a blast, and I cannot wait to pick up Pounded by the Produce next year and check out your recent Crimson Wolf.
Yeah, and thank you so much for having me. Thank you for popping my podcast cherry. This has been so fun.
Oh, yeah.
Love being here. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. This has been Must Love Books. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Patreon under @MustLoveBooksPodcast. Thank you and happy reading.
This podcast is supported by Talkspace.
When my husband came home from his military deployment, readjusting was hard for all of us. Thankfully, I found Talkspace.
Talkspace provides professional support from licensed therapists and psychiatric providers online. Military members, veterans, and their dependents ages 13 and older can get fast access to providers, all from the privacy of their computers or smartphones.
I just answered a few questions online, and Talkspace matched me with a therapist. We meet when it's convenient for me, and I can message her anytime. It was so easy to set up, and they accept TRICARE. Therapy was going so well, my husband and I started seeing a couples therapist through Talkspace too.
Talkspace works with most major insurers, including TRICARE. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com/military. Go to Talkspace.com/military to get started today. That's Talkspace.com/military.